So I'm going to show you now a 1x1 rib stitch, and this is alternating a knit stitch and a purl stitch. So it's a reversible fabric. It looks the same on both sides, but only the knit stitch is visible because the fabric is pulled together, and this makes it quite and the fact that the fabric is pulled together causes what is known as negative ease. So you could knit a whole jumper in this and you wouldn't need to put in any decreases or increases for figure shaping. It would just stretch where you're wider and naturally come in where you're thinner. Okay, but this stitch is mainly used for bands, so cuff bands or waist bands and things like that. You can actually see on my jumper here, I've got a 1x1 rib, but it's a twisted 1x1, which I will show you how to do in another video. So we tension our yarn and we're going to knit one knit stitch. So we put the needle in to the left of the stitch up and through and knit it. And then we're going to do a purl stitch. Now what's really important here is that on the knit stitch, the yarn is always to the back of the needle, and to the purl, it has to be at the front of the needle. So we have to make sure that we put the yarn underneath the needle and back to the front, and then we purl. And then back again. We can't go and knit. If I was to knit without moving the yarn back to the back of the fabric, I would do what we call a yarn over. This is a common mistake for beginners. And look, I've created a new stitch and a hole. You don't want to do that. That's why what happens often if you find your knitting is getting bigger and bigger as you go along. So we put the yarn underneath the needle to the back of the fabric and we knit one. And then the yarn comes forward underneath the needle and we purl one. And then the yarn to the back of the fabric and we knit one. And then yarn to the forward of the fabric and we purl one. So knit one, yarn underneath the needle to the front, purl one, underneath the needle to the back, knit one, underneath to the front, purl one. Now I'm going to go fast so you can just see what it looks like. If it's not so slow, it's a little slower. Than normal knitting. So I'm going to go slow again. We bring the wool to the front and we purl. And we bring the wool to the back, always underneath the needle, and we knit. Wool to the front and purl. Wool to the back and knit. And that creates this lovely 1x1 rib. Now, I'm going to quickly get to the end of the row. I always knit my last stitch. I never purl it. That keeps the side of the fabric sturdy. So now here I have to knit and purl and knit and purl. So I always purl the first one. I always knit the first one. Now, if you want to know, am I up to a purl or am I up to a knit? We have a look at the stitch. The next stitch here, it's got from left to right the yarn underneath like a bubble. So we know that has to be a purl stitch. The one next to it, the yarn is going down into a V. That has to be a knit stitch. So purl, we bring the yarn to the front. Needle from right to left and we purl it. Now we see that this one here has got a V coming down, so that has to be a knit. We take the yarn, we put it to the back of the fabric and we knit it. So that's how you recognize, again, we've got this bobble here directly underneath our stitch, so it has to be a purl. And here we've got a V, so we have to knit it. So that's the 1 by 1 rib.